Good morning, Matt. That's right. The big story today, without a doubt, the US vice presidential debate. Kamala Harris and Vice President Mike Pence facing off in Salt Lake City for their first and only debate.
We have to get a hold of what has been going on, and we need to save our country. And Joe Biden is the best leader to do that. And frankly, this administration has forfeited their right to re-election based on this.
The reality is, when you look at the Biden plan, it reads an awful lot like what President Trump and I and our task force have been doing every step of the way.
You heard there Vice President Pence defending the administration's response to the pandemic. Senator Harris also hitting back, focusing on the death of hundreds of thousands of Americans, while also taking aim at Pence as head of the coronavirus task force. Now, this debate was far more reserved than the last. Pence coming across as more ideological, less combative, perhaps even more prepared and more rehearsed than Trump. But Harris, of course, the former prosecutor, had a very strong debate, coming out of this with perhaps the most memorable line of the night, Matt, calling the administration's handling of the coronavirus crisis the greatest failure of any American presidency. Live now to Grant Harris. He's the founder and CEO of Connect Frontier. He was also the former special assistant to President Obama. He joins us live now from Palo Alto in California. And Grant, we're pleased you can join us today to digest this most recent debate, perhaps more reserved than the last. You've heard both candidates. Tell me, what was your key takeaway and what were the moments that stuck out?
As you said, it was a more civil debate than the presidential debate, but that's not saying much. It's a pretty low bar. The points that stuck out to me was that it was much more substantive. I did think that each side was able to highlight the key issues, but Senator Harris was able, as you noted, to really drive home the number of American deaths in COVID-19 and the fact that 210,000 American deaths to date and more by the day. It's a stunning number, and it's a staggering percentage even compared to other countries. She noted as well that there was recently an event at the White House where Vice President Pence and other attendees weren't wearing masks, weren't socially distancing. And so I think she scored some great points there, pointing out hypocrisy. At the same time, while Vice President Pence was noting that in his mind there were some alternative facts here, that seemed to be quite self-serving, in my opinion, given that there have been literally tens of thousands of false truths and half-truths cataloged by the media in terms of what President Trump and what Vice President Pence have said over the last nearly 4 years.
Indeed, Grant, and Vice President Pence didn't want to be talking about the coronavirus and the president's diagnosis. He would, of course, prefer to be talking about the economy and the Supreme Court nomination. Do you think there's a clear winner that's come out of this debate tonight?
I think that Senator Harris did quite well. Vice President Pence needed to go in and, as you were talking about, show his ideology, but at the same time, I think, show some reserve. There was quite a backlash against President Trump's performance in the first debate, and Vice President Pence was seeking to seem more mature in this go-round. But I think what Senator Harris did was really show her credentials, really show that her story is compelling, that her views are compelling, and also I think paint a picture by speaking directly into the camera and asking people what they would prefer, who will be better off under the healthcare proposals that Vice President Biden is bringing to the table versus what Vice President Pence and what President Trump are trying to do in taking away healthcare from some 20 million people. And so on those issues, I think that that's going to resonate with a lot of voters.